Kick off. We're looking forward to being able to see something of the match. There's the Treviso lineup, the popular Springbok Franco Smith's last game in charge as he bids arrivederci to the locals with 5 significant changes to the Belfast lineup. Matt Bergquist is replaced by Alberto Di Bernardo as playmaker. No injury, just a tactical switch, we're told. Botes comes back in as his feed at scrum half. Brendan Williams, their jack-in-the-box fullback, is back. Natalia moves to the outside centre berth, and Eduardo Gori, scrum half last week, is going to go to the wing. Michel Rizzo will look to stiffen up the scrum's resolve, helped no doubt by the substantial presence of Manu Vosawai. There is Franco Smith waving goodbye. I don't know whether all the fans can see him, it has to be said, but it's a very sad exit for Smith, more of which we'll talk about later. For the first time in his 18-month tenure now, Mark Anscombe picks not just the same 15, but the same 23 for successive matches. It means special days for Dan Tui and John Afoa, raising their metaphorical bats for their Ulster century and half-century, respectively. As you can see, a very emotional moment for Franco and indeed his family, have really immersed themselves in the Italian culture. All 3 children are bilingual. They've all been at Italian schools, so they all will be bidding arrivederci with some sadness in their hearts. There's the benches. Plenty of international experience from both sides. Alongside me, Tyrone Howe. Tyrone, when you look at this, you'd think after a 7-try nilling of the opposition 7 days ago that there might be an element of foregone conclusion to today's rematch, but the ingredients are somewhat different this afternoon, aren't they?
This match is all about psychology. It's all about the mental edge that both these sides are bringing into the game. As you can see, Franco Smith, this is his last game. That is going to absolutely propel this Treviso side, who will be smarting after last week. They're now on their home turf. There's a certain machismo, a pride that's been hurt from last week. They will come out and they'll want to throw everything at Ulster. Ulster started exceptionally well last week. Can they really just continue where they left off? They've got to proverbially hit the ground running. They've got to hit Treviso early, but Treviso, it's going to be all guns blazing in the opening 5 or 10 minutes.
Well, there's Dan Tui about to lead out the Ulster side. A special moment for Tui, of course. Johan Muller just waiting to let his second row partner take the adulation of the crowd, and Muller leading out a team that has got to be primed now with confidence and momentum. Just the belief that they know what they've got to do. One thing's for sure, they will have been focused on going again from zero this afternoon. Psychologically though, it'll be interesting to see how last week affects both sides.
It will be. I think Treviso have certainly got the most to prove, but Ulster, can they just back up an emphatic performance? Going away from home is different. You see the conditions, the fog, this is an alien territory. Can they respond to the pressure? Effectively, that last result last week is only as good as a performance and a result this week.
Yeah, it's got to be backed up, no question. As Treviso wearing their European shirts this week, they had to revert to their traditional green and whites. There's Brendan Williams stepping out. It's his 50th Heineken Cup appearance, albeit half a dozen of those were for Padova. So a special day for the Australian fullback as well, with his daughter there. But as I say, Treviso wearing their orange and white European shirts rather than the traditional green and white. They might need to be luminous, I suspect, by the end of this 80 minutes if we're to have any chance of being able to pick them out through the course of this game. Big crowd, expecting big things from Treviso, and in all honesty, they haven't seen it this season, and that's why the ructions off the pitch have been going on. Greg Garner, the man on the whistle, was in charge of that Munster-Perpignan game last weekend and didn't receive rave reviews from the French camp, it has to be said.
Are we okay to go?
So here we go. Alberto Di Bernardo, the Argentinian who's nailed his colours to the Italian flag, as it were, for Italian caps for the fly half. As Ulster look to settle themselves down, and I say going from zero, Tyrone, it's easier said than done sometimes, isn't it, when you know what's happened 7 days previously?
The biggest issue is that complacency is not the right word to describe it, but just when you've canned out such a hammering, it's difficult not to think you're just simply going to win, and you just got to go through the 80 minutes. But it's all about the process. They'll be talking in the change about what got them to that point of almost scoring half a century of points.
Well, here's width on the ball immediately from the home side. Very different back lineup, of course, with Eduardo Gori, who was subbed after 21 minutes. You can say what you like about Franco Smith, but he's not afraid to call the shots early as he sees it. I seem to remember a game against Leicester at Welford Road last season or season before when he removed all of his props 10 minutes before the break. So quite happy to make the big calls as and when needed.
Ulster to be very happy with that opening minute. Managed to get the ball and just took it into the Treviso half, and this penalty opportunity allows them to set up camp deep down in Treviso territory. One of the, I suppose, the features of last weekend was Ulster started so brightly, really attacked Treviso. Treviso struggled to get their hands on the ball in that opening 10 minutes.
Well, Ulster looking to tip their European balance into the black. 155 lost, 55 and 3 drawn in their 114th Heineken Cup experience this afternoon. Rob Herring, man of the match, of course, nominated by my co-commentator alongside, and what a game he had, making the most of Rory Best's absence and really having a big impact on this Ulster lineup.
Big boots to fill, but Herring did everything well last weekend.
Safe line-out take, and they work the pod, but it's fractured and it's not going to go any further. Ruan Pienaar just checking out the call for the next move. Wilson waiting outside. Oh, in fact, it's not, it's Luke Marshall, beg your pardon. That's the fun and games we're going to have this afternoon, I suspect. Ulster for the first time getting inside the opposition 22, but the advantage is there for the home side. Holding on, says referee Garner, and the moment is gone.
Well, it really just started from the line out there. Fractured pods, 3 players over the ball, easy for Treviso to deal with, and then John Afoa standing on his own, got slightly isolated.
As I mentioned, Treviso's run not particularly, how can I put it, hasn't been able to gain momentum. They've had wins over Connaught, they've had wins over Munster, and they had a draw with Cardiff Blues a fortnight ago, but it was that Cardiff Blues draw when Gareth Davis's penalty 4 minutes from the end tied things up at 26-26 that really tipped the balance for Franco Smith. And Marino Zata, the president, said there's too many mistakes, it's lacking the hunger of previous years, and much as we knew that Smith was heading back to South Africa at the end of the season, that's been brought forward now to the end of this match, ending an 11-year association, Franco Smith, with the North Italian club, a team that he played for. 12 Heineken Cup games he played for the Trevisians, as Jared Payne, safe and secure under the high ball, and sends it back up into the Treviso half. Yeah, 12 appearances in this competition for Treviso, now in his 7th season in charge. Back-to-back Italian titles, 2009, 2010, so achieved something, but Italy, as ever, trying to fast-track their game into the European rugby arena, and it just hasn't moved on as they might have hoped this season. There's, I just saw a brief shot there of Marius Husson, the assistant manager who's going to be taking over until the end of the season. Giraldini throws long, and it's an errant throw, and quickly picked up by Herring. Moved out, Doyle getting width on it, Payne cutting the line back inside, trying to see if there's any early gaps there. Jackson feeds on. Tom Court finds no way through there. Marshall. Gilroy coming inside, looking for his first real action of the game. Good defence from Treviso, pushing up quickly, not necessarily in the straightest of lines, but the intent is there, and the ball has been smothered. Skipper Muller trying to reset things for the visitors. Again, looking for that first up pod to try and break the line. Now they put width on it. Marshall pulled down just inside, gets the support of Gilroy. And the Ulstermen getting the rhythm and getting the syncopation through the phases, not making an awful lot of headway, but happy to get the hands on the ball early doors.
Rock now.
Pina just weighing up the options. John Afoa. Now Pina spots the gap. Can he get the offload in? Yes, he can. Dan Tui, try scorer last week, of course, at Ravenhill. And suddenly Ulster moving into a different gear. Well, Herring having to slide to a halt. But Ulster now into the red zone, now threatening that Treviso line. Pina, the man that got the first break. Marshall having to pluck that one in from the mist. Jackson cuts back inside against the weaker shoulder. They peel left again. Trimble. Oh, it's a hard pass for Tom Court to take, and it allows Botes to clear the lines. No knock forward though. Referee not playing advantage there. So Treviso will carry on. Oh, it looked for one moment like Eduardo Gori was going to have a run to the line. Well, an interesting first 7 minutes.
Well, smart play from Treviso there. Andrew Trimble out of the play. Nobody at home. Can he play also from the Ulster halfbacks, mixing up lovely balance between runners and going wide. Unfortunately there, Tom Court, just the opposition too much in his face, took his eye off the ball, and that could have been end-to-end stuff. But you saw Pinar so clever just around the fringes. As soon as those pillars just broke away, straight through the middle, Paddy Jackson backing himself. But it comes down to that old cliche, you've got to earn the right to go wide. Last week Treviso defended so narrowly that on the wide channels there was space almost every time Ulster moved the ball. But they know it's not going to be as easy this weekend. They've got to try and penetrate that defensive line through the forwards first and foremost, to be able to bring that Treviso defence narrower and then expose and get that ball into Gilroy's and Trimble's hands. And Jared Paynes, they did so much damage. Cave, these lovely offloads that he produced last weekend, plenty of threats out wide for Ulster.
Now this is an interesting first scrummage for the Trevisians, who struggled so badly in Belfast last week.
Straight, please, Treviso.
New loose head in Michel Rizzo, but it's still Cittadini and Giraldini as his front row compatriots. See the weights there. Well, just edging it. Interesting to see how it impacts through the course of this game. Pina spreads it wide. The little pop pass to Gilroy. Gilroy steps one, looking to keep the movement into this opportunity for Ulster. They spin it out wide. Trimble offloaded, but I don't think it's found an Ulster hand. The referee says play on. Jackson loses the ball in the contact, but it's quickly picked up. But this time it is a knock forward. But good work from Andrew Trimble down that right wing. Good work from the Ulster backs.
Well, Paddy Jackson and Trimble, in fact, Paddy Jackson and Gilroy combining exceptionally well. Again, when you've got a hard defence coming up at you, you either go round it or you have to try and go through it. And inside, or on the outside, on his outside shoulder, Craig Gilroy just picking it up. Really just, we're probably looking to get one pass away, but beautifully held up by Paddy Jackson. Here we need one really deft offload, and it keeps the movement going. There's been all Ulster really in terms of possession down in the territory. They'll be delighted, but they'd be quite happy just to maybe just convert one of these chances to try and get some points on the scoreboard.
And certainly Gilroy and Trimble will be happy to have been involved as much as they have inside this first 10 minutes. Gilroy had a month out with that ankle injury. Scored a brace of tries on his return against Edinburgh. Third game in the 11 shirt. He's had 3 in the 15 shirt this season. Lost a penalty from that scrum, and a certain sense of deja vu already.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Garner, the referee, actually deals with the scrum, but he's been quite emphatic there in his ruling. going straight for the penalty. Be interesting to see what decision Ulster take here. But we just look to try and get 3 points on the board.
Indeed, that seems to be the option. The tee is out. Looks like Ruben Pienaar lining up. Interesting call as to who's going to take kicks. As we look through the mist, I'm not sure whether it's Jackson or Pienaar that's setting up. I think it's going to be the left boot of Ruben Pienaar. No, it is Jackson. Well, it was 1 out of 2, and it is the young fly half who, of course, got those got 5 out of 7 last week in his 18 points. Now looking to break the scoreboard duck as he tries to swing it in towards the post through the gloom of the floodlights. The Ulstermen can stand and applaud as they do at last get 3 points on the board.
Yeah, good reward for some solid effort. Also, people talk about the bonus point. Ulster, first and foremost, will want to go for victory here, try and get themselves into a decent lead, and then whatever comes along, they just have to take opportunities. But above all, you've got to work hard just to get those early points on the board.
McLean, fullback last week, of course, a role that he occupied for Italy through all 3 of the autumn internationals. In fact, played 10 in the first round of the Hamilton Cup this season against Montpellier. Barbieri, the link man, but the ball goes loose, and again it's snaffled. This time it's Brendan Williams, and just as we were looking to see that trademark step from the Aussie 7 star, the referee's whistle calls a halt. He is a danger though, isn't he?
Well, it's the last person you want to see in space.
Be lucky to see him today.
Yeah, Luke Marshall did exceptionally well. He came out of the line trying to force the Treviso play back inside, but they managed to get outside his defence, but tracked back exceptionally well, made that tackle. And when you look at the pictures, it's much worse than it actually is down on the pitch. As you can see, visibility not too bad for the players.
No, certainly don't seem to be impacting at the moment, which is always a good sign. I have to say that during the week, though, there has been cause for concern. Certainly by 4 o'clock yesterday, there was a thick bank of fog covering the Stadio Comunale di Monigo. And of course, naught you can do about it if that's the case. At the moment, there's naught that the Treviso pack can do from Ulster again, turning the screw up front to allow Ruben Pienaar that free kick. Brendan Williams stepping in. Eduardo Gori playing on the wing, as he has done, of course, for Italy on several occasions. Lots of tackling off the ball, I would suggest, but referee happy to penalise the knock forward from Treviso.
Well, positive signs for Ulster. That overthrow in the early line out from Treviso, and now they've had a lot of difficulty at scrum time. You see Brendan Williams going up for the ball, but these little offloads, Treviso trying to keep the ball alive, just not clicking for them, but Ulster looking very, very solid at the set piece.
So, time for another scrum. Certainly it's an area that Ulster have been able to utilise the power of both those props, Court and Afoa, both of them of course leaving at the end of the season. Tom Court going across the water to join London Irish, and Afoa across the water to Kingsholm to be a cherry and white. That scrum not quite working out as they'd hoped, and Treviso quick to pick up the scraps. Passing not really helping, and there's Ludo Natolia, the wingman, brought into the midfield combination this afternoon. Zani, such an important player. Don't see an awful lot of him. The Richard Hill of Italian rugby, if you will. Only the glue that holds everything together. That's a good kick.
It's a good kick, and Vosovai, new flanker on the Treviso back row, really quick to expose Roger Wilson at the back of the scrum. You see Luke Marshall makes the tackle straight up on his feet. The first real mistake that we've seen from the set piece from Ulster, but they get another chance from the line out.
Well, this season And 6 out of 9, of course, in the Pro 12, and 3 out of 3 only Ulster and Leinster unbeaten thus far. It says something about the competition, Tyrone. I think that there's only 2 teams that still have a 100% record. Brendan Williams, I'm loving those luminous yellow boots. Botez feeds out to Di Bernardo. Gorey off his wing to Natolia in more familiar surroundings for the Treviso 13. Gorey spinning it wide. Treviso happy to get a lot more width on the ball this afternoon than they were in Belfast, certainly early on.
2 knock-ons.
Well, I think they realise that they just smash people up the middle. The Ulster defensive line is rock solid. They're not going to get any change out of it, so they've had to just be far more ambitious. Maybe actually being truer to themselves as well, playing much more expansive rugby, keeping the ball alive, hoping for those offloads in the half yards, stretching the Ulster defence, maybe trying to create a few more questions for them.
Well, certainly the work of Johnny Bell seems to be bearing fruit. Ulster with the best defensive record in the Pro 12, along with Glasgow, and of course they sit tied with Glasgow, level on points. I think Glasgow have actually got the 3rd position at the moment, but it's certainly defensively been a very sound start this season from the Ulstermen. On the road, well, didn't start that well against the Dragons, but backed it up with wins over Connacht and Ospreys, and of course that huge win at Stade Yves de Manoir in Montpellier, which has really upset Pool 5, if you will. You know, victory away from home is like gold dust, and so early on it really gave Ulster the momentum going into this campaign.
And that's been the mark of, when you mentioned Leinster and Ulster, it's been the ability to win away from home that's really put their names on the lips of lots of, I suppose, commentators, spectators around Europe. You know, 2 teams that are being mentioned in terms of competing for this trophy, but also, you know, victory against Tigers, then Montpellier away, and then last weekend all of a sudden they're back again, being mentioned as potential winners of this competition.
Roger Wilson allows Pienaar to feed out, and this pass gets it out to the left wing very quickly. Craig Gilroy, not quite with the room that he was hoping for there, but Gilroy, a winger that really came onto the world rugby radar with that marvellous try in the quarterfinals against Munster. Has he pressed on for you, Tyrone? Are you happy with the way he's developing?
Well, it's been quite difficult for him because he's struggled with a couple of injuries which have slightly knocked his progress. One might have expected for him to be competing for the autumn internationals, but was out through injury. Ulster have got huge strength and depth out in the wing berth, so he's having to play well to maintain his position. It's going to be very interesting, mind you, when Tommy Bro comes back to full fitness, who are actually going to be the starting 2 wingers.
Right now it's his fellow winger Andrew Trimble who's waiting for the ball. There it goes. Trimble remarkably making his 57th consecutive Heineken Cup appearance. That ties up with David Humphreys as the most experienced Ulsterman. It really has been a remarkable progression for the right winger. Suddenly coming clear, but I think it just edged forward there.
You see a couple of spilled balls from Ulster. Treviso will be absolutely delighted. They managed to make this game already into slightly more ragged than last weekend. Ulster struggling to get structure and pattern on the game. See, almost at the end of this first quarter, 3-0. This is a completely different game to last week.
But it always was going to be, wasn't it? I mean, you put Treviso at home and you see them in a very different light, pardon the pun. But, you know, Biarritz have been, Perpignan have been, Harlequins, Bath, Wasps. They've all left with knout from matches against Treviso at home and realised how different Italian opposition are in their own home.
Well, it's just that sense of urgency. They looked last weekend as if they just wanted to get back to Italy. They seemed to have no interest from the start of the game, and I mean, it was such a disappointing performance from them, but as you say, a completely different animal back in Treviso. And Ulster, I think, knew as well that it was going to be a different encounter. Their defensive line so much more aggressive. They're looking for the hits this time and trying to play a bit more rugby and a bit more aggression carrying the ball.
Cittadini and Court on this near side, 2 big units. Should of course have mentioned Ospreys in that list as well. The Welshman finishing last season's Heineken Cup campaign with loss to Treviso. They'll be happy with their lot at the moment with that win over Cash last night. Remarkable kicking performance from Dan Biggar. Hasn't missed a single kick in 17, and all 55 points of Osprey's European campaign have come from his boot. I'm not sure what that says about the open play scenario, but Biggar's accuracy off the tee, a definite plus. There's Brendan Williams sending it back towards the Ulster 22. Jared Payne just working out the best exit option. And it's Jackson who affects it. Paddy Jackson, I was interested in reading during the week, Johan Muller says that he considers Paddy Jackson as the real leader of Ulster. As a 21-year-old, that is a big responsibility.
Well, you need your 10 to be a leader. You're making the majority of the decisions, but you also need strong individuals around. But Paddy Jackson has come on very well. And I suppose one of the question marks was, to what extent was his work ethic as good as the top 5 halves in the country and around? But he's out there practicing all the time. His kicking's much more reliable, and he just fizzes the passes out, and he gets this very dangerous Ulster backline moving.
Right now, this Ulster backline is in defensive mode, holding its own at the moment. But the likes of Brendan Williams buzzing around those wide flanks, you've got to be alert, and you've got to be able to shift your weight so quickly.
Yeah, you do, but you do not want Geraldinho, your hooker, out on the wing, not the man to give the ball to.
Don't get the fat men out in the wide. That's the call. It's been the nature of the beast for many a year. You want more like Luke McLean, who slams it back towards the Ulster 22 once again, forcing the back three to either work their way out or work a kicking exit strategy out. Toby Botez, South African, who now wears the Azuri colours, of course. 19 times he's been capped, but found himself behind Eduardo Gori through the autumn internationals as well. That'll be interesting to see how Jack Brunel works through the Six Nations as to who gets responsibility, and of course who plays in the 10 shirt, of course, for Italy as well, with Tommaso Allen, the Perpignan young fly-half, being given the responsibility in that last match against Argentina. There's Muller jumping at 2.
Don't close the gap, please.
Just behind him. Just about got his hands to it, but possession of the ball goes to Treviso, but I think the referee just pulls it back.
But Ulster really struggling to deal with the unstructured nature of the game in the last 10 or 15 minutes. The scrums, well, they're getting the ball back, but it's been pretty sloppy. First line out that we've seen really not operating efficiently, and this all plays to the hand of Treviso. When there is a lack of structure, you've simply got to put structure in the game yourself. So Ulster need that to start with the set piece. They've got to get their scrum sorted again. They've got to get the line out functioning, and off that platform and off that basis, then you've got something for Pienaar and Jackson to play with. But they need to get this set piece sorted.
The error count for both sides, not quite what they would have hoped for as the game moves into the second quarter.
On the outside,
they're just trying to establish the engagement of those front rows. Allows for the scrum to take place. Looking at another interesting piece with John Afoa going, the ability of Ulster to be able to replace him in a tight head role, especially with the foreigner qualification across the board now. It's not going to be easy for David Humphreys to find another 3, albeit of course Declan Fitzpatrick's been making headway. It's going to be a difficult call and difficult money as well, I suspect. We should watch that one with interest as Darren Cave tries to hold on to the ball, but it's, you know, big boots to follow, to fill, and that's always going to be the way with a tight head. But
well, you see the body language here. Again, another unforced error. Ulster now just tipping the balance. 6-5 unforced errors in the game. But yes, it is a challenge how to replace Afoa. But when you talk about the money, well, they're going to have a fair amount of money to spend when you take his paycheck into consideration. And Court as well. Let's not forget the impact and influence that Court has had together with Rory Best, and an incredibly effective front row, which has very much set the platform for the rest of it. But your tight head is worth his weight in gold, so a big test to see who they can get to fill his boots.
Set.
Fly halves and tight heads, the most expensive rugby players in the world, I'm told. Botez waiting and waiting for the call from the referee, and in the end, I think Greg Garner just losing patience with those 6 gentlemen. Good luck with taking that photo, sir. I'm not quite sure it's going to be as sharp as you might have liked.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Let's see if this scrum can engage as Greg Garner would like. Steve Lee and Roy Maybank, his assistant referees this afternoon. TMO is Trevor Fisher.
Crouch.
Should he be called upon? There's Toby Botez,
Bind.
former Cheetahs man. Lots of Cheetahs connections, of course, with Treviso, with Franco Smith's history. Quick ball from the scrum for the home side. Williams comes calling, looking for opportunity. McLean, slightly bulkier presence. And again, the forwards happy to do the hard yards, but quicker ball, noticeably quicker ball. Giraldini goes through one, brought down by Sean Doyle. Look at the speed with which Treviso are getting through the phases now, trying to unsettle the Ulster defence, not allow them the time to get back into that line. They go again with Manavosawai. Looking for those inside runners. I think it was Brendan Williams, yes it was, the 15 there, trying to cut a different angle, but the turnover ball has allowed Pienaar to clear his lines. Williams back into familiar role, and Luke McLean with the left-footed clearance. How's that going to work out? Very well, as the fans salute the kick from their winger.
This Treviso side is unrecognisable from last week, where Ulster's defence were dominating, throwing them back every single time they tackle. On this weekend, Treviso breaking the gain line, gaining extra yards, and that gives them the impetus and the motivation to run even more hard onto the ball, keep on getting the ground. And Ulster, well, they got that turnover, but a terrific kick puts them back down into their 22. And this is the first time Ulster really have had to defend their own try line. It's going to be really interesting to see this exit strategy.
Eddie Jackson glad that he cut his fingernails there, I think, just flirting with the ball as it whisked over his head. Yeah, he didn't touch it. Rob Herring's pass is slapped back by Antonio Pavanello, and here is the platform perhaps for Treviso to threaten Ulster. Pass not particularly helpful for Eduardo Gori, but he does well to pick it up off his bootstraps. Di Bernardo. Just wondered there whether he'd been turned over, but it hasn't. It's been delivered back, posted back for Botez.
It looked as if he'd been wrapped up there, but Treviso managed to get the ball back. Now they need the cavalry, now they need the forwards to give them a bit of go-forward ball, but opportunity for 3 points.
Assist tackler. Assist tackler.
Well, they're very passionate in these parts for their rugby, and they will want a big performance for Franco Smith's send-off. And as Tyrone has already mentioned, it is a very different performance that we've seen thus far from the Trevisians.
Well, plenty to say in that Ulster huddle. They've been rattled in this last 10-15 minutes. The line out not going particularly well. Again, you'd expect them to win solid, secure ball on their own throw in their 22. With this Treviso side, they have absolutely rattled Ulster.
Di Bernardo making his first start in 2 months. It's his first Heineken Cup appearance of this season. And the last 2 matches he played were against Ulster and against Connacht, and he didn't miss a kick in 5. Now taking on responsibility from the tee. and hitting the target first up. So a good start from the boot of Alberto Di Bernardo.
Got to say, the changes that Treviso have also made very important. They've really tampered with the spine of their team. They brought in the new fly half Di Bernardo, and Botes, who started on the bench, has come in at 9. They've been controlling the game a little better. Busawai coming into the back row, and maybe even more crucially, that loose head prop Rizzo coming in to try and combat the strength of a 4.
Michele Rizzo started all 3 autumn internationals for the Azzurri. And you can see the importance of his stature, shall we say, inside the set piece.
Play it on the ground.
Well, the penalty going to the visitors.
On the ground. Pass it
And
off the ground.
ill discipline, which has riddled Treviso's season, just flaring up again there.
Ulster be delighted with that response. Straight back down the pitch.
Can't play the ball.
Straight back to an opportunity to get their noses in front again.
How many times do we see that? Off the back of a restart or something around that restart, be it a lack of concentration, be it skills just evading people, but there's always that mental switch that seems to be turned off after you've scored points.
Well, there's an element, I suppose, of the technical side of it where, you know, if it's a good kick, it allows you to run onto the ball, try and avoid the inevitable players in front who are now trying to obstruct, but also you just mentally switch off. When we tell schoolboys at school, you know, you must those points only as good as this kickoff. Secure the kickoff and end up back in the opposition half.
Paddy Jackson just not able to pull that one round. So half an hour gone, Tyrone, 3 points apiece. Which coach though is going to be the happier on those early engagements, as it were?
I think it has to be Franco Smith. We have a proper tussle of a game here. Ulster, they started very brightly in the opening 10 minutes, but have struggled to get any sort of superiority in the last 20 minutes. Treviso much happier with the way they're playing. They're being aggressive, they're being ambitious, and they've got this Ulster side upset. So Ulster really have to finish strongly in these last 8.5 minutes.
Well, you always talk about the times either side of half-time as being critical psychologically, huge pluses and minuses that can bedevil a side. Certainly they're thinking in the changing rooms at the break. There's Marius Husson, himself the record Heineken Cup point scorer for Treviso, 227. Man who's been around Treviso for many a year and now taking on responsibility for the team up until the end of this season, so we're told.
Set. Yes,
There was a kind of inevitability to that. It was just never seemed to find parity in terms of where the stress was in the engagement, and Greg Garner having a few issues with those 2 front rows.
Keep that distance, please.
Lorenzo Cittadini
Crouch.
turns 31 on Tuesday. Would like an early birthday present out of this game, if at all possible.
Bind. Set.
Didn't play much through November because he was on the bench not every game for Italy. And now enjoying his work against Tom Corton. What a battle that is between those two. Well, Cittadini's mob getting the call that time from Greg Garner.
That will give huge heart to this Treviso pack.
Straight, this side.
They're putting much wanted Ulster front row and Ulster front 5 under pressure.
Saw Lorenzo Giraldini there, Leonardo Giraldini, I beg his pardon, who just came back from 2 months out with that shoulder injury, came back onto the bench against Australia and then started the Fiji and Argentina games. How strong his shoulder is now is really going to be put to the test by this Ulster 8, but certainly seems to be standing up to everything thus far that John Afoa and crew can throw at him. Giraldini Sets up for the line out. Real proof of the Italian systems. Come through from all the way through from under 15s to the elite. And that shows the academy system and development has really worked for the Azzurri over the last few years, but they need to start getting results, and that is no truer for Treviso than for the senior elite team.
Well, the Ulster HEC have another chance at this scrum. Line out, saw the reaction of Dan Tue. They almost managed to pinch it. Garner trying to get these packs down straight. Doesn't want to spend too much time lost in the game. We've seen too much of that over the last couple of seasons.
Bind.
Well, we hoped the new engagement process was going to certainly reduce that. Again, you just see 16 men bucking and unable to find that hold.
Well, also being penalised for pushing before the ball there, but the ball's being held. The ball has to be fed into the scrum a little bit more quickly as well. Need to get on with the game. There's far too much wrestling for an extra couple of seconds there. Just get them in, get the ball in, and let's restart the game.
I'll have to say, from our feed, we cannot hear the referee's calls on the pitch, but the synchronisation of when he's happy that the scrum settles to allowing the 9 to feed the ball is critical in getting the game moving again, and Greg Garner has struggled to be able to achieve that for whatever reasons.
Set. Yes, 9.
And again, well, surely he's got to start penalising now to make some change, because it's settling into a very unhappy pattern.
You need to be stationary as well from your team. Yeah.
I think this surely has to be the last opportunity that both front rows have to get this scrum right. Otherwise, Garner's going to penalise one of these sides, if only simply just to get the game going again.
And he's got 3 Italians on one side and an Aussie, South African and a Kiwi on the other.
Both sides, we must be stationary
You would think
before the ball's
something
in.
about scrummaging.
Crouch.
You would think he would have been having a chat, Greg Garner, by now.
And they all speak English, so there shouldn't be any problem with comprehension.
Yes, 9.
Botez does at last get the scrum in. Oh, there's one against the head there for Rob Herring, and it's a penalty to his team in any case.
Well, you can see what that means. That is a big scrum, a big statement. Well done, Rob Herring. Ulster very, very keen to try and just set up camp, try and get something these last couple of minutes. If they can get a couple of points, even if it was just a drop goal, a penalty, they would get just a bit of a psychological boost at half-time, whereas 3-all at half-time, well, Treviso would be absolutely delighted with that.
3 minutes to go until the break. There's Van Zeel calling the line-out shots for the home side. Just looking to see what he's going to have to defend against now. Zani trying to compete, but it's there for Peanut. Jackson not throwing the 50-50 pass, taking the responsibility to set up the next phase. Dyack enjoying the responsibility given to him now, but Jared Payne trying to thread one through. Marshall's there, and Luke Marshall's gone over. Well, what a good time to score a try, and Luke Marshall has once again penalised Treviso. Now I think there may be a check going on here. Just looking at Greg Garner there seems to be a lot of discussion.
Right, Trevor.
Now, has he given the try or not? Ulster certainly think it's a 5-pointer. And they're going to set up, but let's have a look at what Trevor Fisher's going to look at here. Little dink through from Jared Payne.
Well, it's absolutely exceptional from Payne. Took the half gap, managed to slightly fend off the defender just to allow himself to make that kick, and that is just perfect in terms of the weight of the kick. Also allowed it to bounce up for Luke Marshall. Terrific timing. The timing does not get better from Ulster.
Well, Luke Marshall loves playing against Treviso, doesn't he? 2 tries last week, scored a try in September as well. Let's just have a look as the kick came through from Jared Payne, and as you say, such a well-weighted kick.
There certainly doesn't seem to be anything wrong with that from what we're seeing.
My guess is it's only the line of whether Marshall was ahead of Payne when the kick came in. Paddy Jackson just waiting for the call from the officials. And a look at it again. There's the kick coming through from Payne. Well, from that angle, Marshall looks onside.
Looks well onside.
Yep, done. Going to me, ready?
All came. Robbie Diak managed to just slip the tackle, got him an extra yard or two.
There's the call, and there's the try, and there's the lead for the Ulster men, and what a good time to take the lead.
Well, Ulster have had to really toil these last 20 minutes, but they got one opportunity, they've taken it. Terrific try, and Jared Payne, when Ulster play their best rugby, Jared Payne is at their centre, but getting the ball into his hands puts all sorts of question marks in a defence. Brilliant execution, mind you, of that kick.
Well, Paddy Jackson looking for brilliant execution of this kick to end the first half in good position. He's just hooked that one, but in a game of what you suspect is going to be tight margins, that first try to the visitors, critical.
That'll just settle the nerves slightly, that the sort of things that were happening last weekend, if Ulster can play to their strengths, can happen again this Saturday.
Well, Luke Marshall's 5th try of the season has put the Ulstermen in good position now. They just have to concentrate for the next 65 seconds to make sure they don't concede any possible opportunity for the home side to reduce or even overtake that lead before the break. Gilroy, good work from Gilroy. Commitment to the high ball. Marshall stepping in, looking for that far flank, but Brendan Williams was ready for it. Ricochet working for Ulster. Paddy Jackson put down just over the 10-metre line.
Penalty advantage.
John Afoa thinking about a sidestep, but thinking the better of it.
Come off the ball.
Again, superb from Ulster. That try has just galvanised them. You can just see from that last passage of play a real spring in the step, and here another chance at 3 points. This would be a huge turn in this game.
As the Ulster bench head for warmer climes, back in the hutches, Paddy Jackson is just going to have what effectively now is a kick to nothing. There's nothing to be lost, 3 points to be gained, and if not, well, we're still heading for the changing rooms in the lead.
Well, it is, but he's missed a couple so far in this first half. He'll be very keen to try and get his rhythm back, make sure he makes up for those earlier mistakes.
So the last kick of this first half. Jackson 1 from 3 thus far. He used that earlier experience to adjust his kicking radar for this last one. On its way and hits the target, and Ulster go to double figures with the last kick of the game. Paddy Jackson takes his team into the changing rooms, and the talk from Mark Anscombe in good fettle now. They've had to put up a lot of resilience through that first half, but they've got the vital score at the vital time. And at the break, it's Treviso 3, Ulster 11.
Continuity is passion. Amlin sponsors Rugby Union on Sky Sports.
To the day What's the first thing you'd do if someone told you they'd been burgled? You'd help.
Don't worry, we'll get this sorted out.
At More Than, we won't interrogate you or pass you around the building. We'll just do all we can to help, like any decent person would.
Thank you.
No problem. Glad I could help.
More Than, where you mean more.
One Million Intense, the new fragrance for men by Paco Rabanne.
Oh my god. Lady Million, the feminine fragrance by Paco Rabanne.
From the creators of World of Tanks. Take the battle to the skies. Pilot hundreds of legendary warplanes in 15-on-15 dogfights. World of Warplanes. Play for free at warplanes.eu.
Here we go.
Two words. Radio Times.
Yeah.
It's Christmas. Of course it's Radio Times.
A man must have principles and must live and dine by these principles. Any attempt at facial hair must be applauded, literally. Well done, son. And he must never eat a bacon sandwich without the big, bold flavour of HP sauce. Makes a sandwich a manwich. HP, a source of manliness. And vote here for the Sportsperson of the Week and you could win these prizes.
Di Serrano on the rocks. Ice. Di Serrano. Di Serrano on the rocks. Di Serrano. Be original.
Seiko Kinetic, turning movement into energy. You are the power. Sportura Kinetic from Seiko.
All I want for Christmas this year is to warm you up with kisses of safe.
See the magic of Christmas with Canon and up to £70 cashback on selected products.
Venez dans mes bras, closer to me, dear. Donnez-vous à moi. Set aside.
Carl.
Restons enlacés pour l'éternité.
Stop!
This is where it ends, Carl.
The Tunnel, the series finale, Wednesday at 9 on Sky Atlantic HD or catch up on demand.
Set. Yes, 9.
Lost a penalty from that scrum and a certain sense of deja vu already.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how Garner, the referee, actually deals with the scrum, but
He's come straight in.
he's been quite emphatic there in his ruling, going straight for the penalty. Be interesting to see what decision Ulster take here.
Now looking to break the scoreboard duck as he tries to swing it in towards the post through the gloom of the floodlights. The Ulstermen can stand and applaud as they do at last get 3 points on the board.
Six.
Give him a bit of go forward
Tackle.
ball, but opportunity for
Tackle.
3 points.
Assist tackler. Assist tackler.
Well, they're very passionate in these parts for their rugby, and they will want a big performance for Franco Smith's send-off. And as Tyrone has already mentioned, it is a very different performance that we've seen thus far from the Trevisians. Now taking on responsibility from the tee and hitting the target first up. So a good start from the boot of Alberto Di Bernardo.
Use it! Play it on the ground.
Well, the penalty going to the visitors.
On the ground. Pass it off the
And
ground.
ill-discipline, which has riddled Treviso's season, just flaring up again there.
Ulster be delighted with that response. Straight back down the pitch.
Can't play the ball.
Straight back to an opportunity to get their noses in front again.
How many times do we see that? Off the back of a restart or something around that restart, be it a lack of concentration, be it skills just evading people, but there's always that mental switch that seems to be turned off after you've scored points.
Well, there's an element, I suppose, of the technical side of it where, you know, if it's a good kick, it allows you to run onto the ball, try and avoid the inevitable players in front who are now trying to obstruct, but also you just mentally switch off. When we tell schoolboys at school, you know, you must those points only as good as this kickoff. Secure the kickoff and end up back in the opposition half.
Paddy Jackson just not able to pull that one round. So half an hour gone, Tyrone, 3 points apiece. Just looking to see what he's going to have to defend against now. Zani trying to compete, but it's there for Peanut. Jackson not throwing the 50-50 pass, taking the responsibility to set up the next phase. Dyack enjoying the responsibility given to him now, but Jared Payne trying to thread one through. Marshall's there, and Luke Marshall's gone over. Well, what a good time to score a try, and Luke Marshall has once again penalised Treviso. Now I think there may be a check going on here. Just looking at Greg Garner there seems to be a lot of discussion. Look at it again, there's the kick coming through from Payne. Well, from that angle, Marshall looks onside.
Looks well onside.
Yep, done. Going to me. Ready?
All came. Robbie Diak managed to just slip the tackle, got him an extra yard or two.
There's the call, and there's the try. Paddy Jackson looking for brilliant execution of this kick to end the first half in good position. He's just hooked that one, but in a game of what you suspect is going to be tight margins, that first try to the visitors, critical. On its way and hits the target, and Ulster go to double figures with the last kick of the game. Well, good afternoon and welcome back as Ulster step out into the somewhat murky conditions of the Stadio Comunale di Monigo when Treviso lost to Leinster 3 weeks ago now, just by a solitary point, 21-20. It ended a 4-match unbeaten home run against the Irish provinces, Connacht and Munster being the losers on all 4 occasions. But Treviso have never beaten an Irish province in the Heineken Cup in 11 attempts. I'm Simon Ward, Tyrone Howe sitting alongside me. Tyrone, can you see this match switching around, or do you see Ulster having control of this game now?
I think those last 5 minutes of the first half really handed the advantage to Ulster. But Treviso have had their fair share of possession, but they've not really had much penetration and haven't really threatened the Ulster try line. If Ulster can keep their defence intact, they'll back themselves to be able to shut out this Treviso side. For all the effort, you wonder, apart from maybe Brendan Williams, who the game breakers are for Ulster. But Ulster, they'll say, we didn't play particularly well in the first half, but let's go out and let's close down this game. Let's finish them off.
Well, certainly when you look at the match stats from that first 40, Ulster tipping possession 52-48 and territory 58-42. It's a matter of where you're playing the rugby, of course. And now Jared Payne trying to make sure that his team gets straight back into threatening mode. Pienaar feeds out to Andrew Trimble. Andrew Trimble, remember the last time that Ulster played Heineken Cup rugby in the Stadio Comunale di Monego. That was back in January 2006 when they won 43-26. I don't think we're going to see the best part of 70 points this afternoon. Trimble, 2 tries, man of the match and a yellow card. Fairly eventful 80 minutes in the rugby life of Mr. Trimble.
See the supporting runners much closer to the ball carrier, making sure that that ruck's just about half a second quicker.
And we saw that with Treviso being able to speed up the rapidity of the turnaround. Now we're seeing it with Ulster. Again, using the last 5 minutes of that first half and trying to make something happen in the first 5 minutes of this second half. Robbie Dyack trying to barge his way through Alessandro Zani. And in the end, Pienaar having to look for the territorial advance. Opposite number, Bobby Botez looking for an attack down the cul-de-sac, but it's a good offload. But was there a foot in touch? Yes, there was. Ryan Maybank with his flag up.
I thought Botez had done exceptionally well because he looked as if he was being dragged out. I'm not sure he can quite believe it because it has a terrific opportunity. Here we see, just watch the feet.
Left boot. It's a timing thing, isn't it?
The back stud of that left boot was a good chasing. Defensive line ran into the white shadow of Roger Wilson, but it was a lovely offload, but line out just outside the 22. Terrific attacking opportunity for Ulster. They'll want to really try and just continue where they left off, put Treviso on the back foot and hopefully try and come away with points early in this second half.
Both lineouts had their own problems, should we say, in that first half. Treviso lost 2 of their 5 and even Ulster lost 1 of their 6. So looking for consistency and concrete possession to set up attack.
When you look at all the chat there, and certainly when we saw the pictures of the changing rooms at halftime, Ulster looked certainly much more focused. Players all together in their units, just talking, chatting, looking to sort out all the little wrinkles that appeared in that first half.
Jackson has Trimble up on his shoulder. The call came in from his right winger, but the ball has gone loose. I think Ulster have just retaken possession, but that was a moment when Treviso, suddenly their eyes widened at the thought of counter-attack possession. Jackson puts one up high. There's every chance that may go out of sight for a bit. Toby Botez, though, keeping his eye on the job in hand and calling the mark. Mentioning mark takes me seamlessly into the Ulster coaching setup. Mark Anscombe coming to the end of his 2-year contract. The other coaches similarly out of contract. Ulster seem to be in a very good place right now, so continuity, keeping the same setup in place?
Well, one would expect so. Anscombe has gone on the record this week as saying that he would be very keen to stay, and who would blame him? Ulster in a very strong position. Again, going to be there by round 6 in Europe, one would expect going to be there hopefully at the death in the Rabo Direct, so plenty to play for this season, and again just strong foundations. Good batch of homegrown players, and Ruan Pienaar signing on again. Muller, will not quite sure what he's going to be doing.
Gilroy, we know what he's doing, trying to step outside Brendan Williams. Ulster really getting their engines revved up since the break, and from the word go have hit through their gears. Jared Payne, who of course made that first half try for Luke Marshall. Kiwi in this Ulster lineup, but is he going to be wearing the green of Ireland over the course of the next year or so? It's going to be interesting to see what Joe Schmidt's call is on Jared Payne. Really and Herring just having a disagreement. I know you talked about it last week, Tyrone, but when I see the advance of somebody like Robbie Henshaw at Connaught to, you know, is he going to be a 13 or a 15? When you look at Jared Payne, the same call is coming up, but he's for a Kiwi. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think for me, certainly there's been plenty of chat about Jared Payne inheriting that 13 shirt from Bod. For me, it's a question, maybe is his top end speed quick enough, the change of pace and angle quick enough? Certainly he takes all the right decisions. I believe from the coaching staff he's certainly one of the best I think that they've ever come across in terms of his skill set. So I suppose what he does need, he needs opportunities, he needs game time in that 13 shirt, an incredibly important position defensively as well. Do you drift, do you shut the corner? So I mean, experience counts for a lot. He's not 21 anymore. It's not,
no, he's 28.
It's not a long-term decision either.
But if you're going to put him in the 13 shirt for Ireland, then surely he's going to be having to play in the 13 shirt for Ulster.
You would have thought so.
That impacts on Darren Cave yet again.
It impacts on him, and it also impacts on who makes the decisions on selection.
It's going to be one to watch as the ball goes loose down that Treviso back line.
Much more aggressive Ulster defensive line, putting Treviso under a lot more pressure.
Just see Barbieri taking his eye off the ball. Robert Barbieri, of course, born in Toronto. Brother Michael was a Canadian international, but Barbieri has been wearing the Azuri 32 times now. Actually disappointed, I'm sure, in leaving Ravenhill last week. It's the first time in 3 visits he hasn't scored a try there. But certainly a bulky presence in that back row, but handling skills letting him down on that occasion and giving away this penalty opportunity to Paddy Jackson. Jackson nailed that penalty with the last kick of the first half and finds the accuracy with the first kick of the second half, and Paddy Jackson now takes his European total, his Heineken Cup total, past the century mark. So quite a significant achievement for a 21-year-old. Of course, lifted his metaphorical bat to his half century of Ulster performances last weekend. 14-13, suddenly it's that scoreline has a certain security to it for the Ulstermen.
Well, it's been a big turnaround over, you talked about the important phases of the game just before and after half-time, and that's 11 points has come Ulster's way, and it takes them beyond the point where Treviso need to score twice. They're going to have to keep the ball in hand, and that will play to Ulster's strength, because that defence, look at them all piling in there, trying to affect the choke tackle, get that scrum back for themselves.
Anybody seen the ball? Doesn't matter. Ref's given it.
Well, Brenton Williams, there was no way he was coming out of that tussle.
He's only 5'8" or 5'9". There was no way that the ball was going to see the light, let alone Brendan Williams.
It was good play. Cabe just grabbed him, held him up. Trimble's in there. It's not really taking much effort from those boys. Strength in numbers.
But this is where you see Treviso's attack going in ones. You know, where we see the Ulster attack with a certain structure to it, or at least the support to the ball carrying. You don't see that so often with Treviso. They're relying, or seem to be relying, on individual brilliance to actually set up an attacking opportunity.
Set.
Again, the scrums buck and drop, just about holding their own, as Pienaar looking to get his midfield, led by, of course, Luke Marshall.
Wait. Yeah, thank you.
Good structured play from Ulster. Williams, the man known to his teammates as Dingo. You can guess why. Di Bernardo feeds outside, and a huge miss pass pulled in by Alessandro Zani. Now 6'4" open side. When he gets going, difficult to pull down.
12.
And he's got the penalty for the home side as well.
Also getting penalised for not ruling away, I think, in the tackle, but again coming up very strongly in the middle of the pitch, giving that wide space to the Italians, and then backing themselves to be able to reel them in out in the wide channels.
You look at the squad picked by Franco Smith, and he's obviously made the changes from Belfast. I'm kind of slightly surprised that we don't see the likes of Christian Lomano in there. That adds a whole different connotation, whether he comes on as a flanker or as a winger. It doesn't seem to matter, but there doesn't seem to be, you said game breakers in the first half, and there's only Brendan Williams. Somebody like Loomanu has got that facility to bust a defensive line open.
Yeah, there was nobody there last week. Brent Williams coming back and at least gives them something, but they don't have the strength just inside Williams to be able to give him that half yard that we saw Jared Payne getting at the end of the first half. But saying that, it has not been the sort of offloading game that we saw last week in Ulster either. They've been dragged down into far greater scrap by this Treviso side. So while they may not be capable of the most fluid rugby, they can make life very difficult for you.
Vosawai making defensive life very difficult as he struggles through the tackle and into the opposition 22. Good defence, double ganging by Johan Muller, and I think Roger Wilson was on his shoulder there. Pressure on the ball carrier paying off. What's the call now? As Luke Marshall seeking explanation from Greg Garner. Well, the call is for Treviso, having been nilled for the first time in all competitions in nearly 5 years last weekend. Well, they've already got that 3 on the board, but they need more points, and they need them fairly quickly now, just to build up the confidence and the momentum.
Crouch.
And certainly when they get into attacking position,
Bind.
Need to be able to capitalise and execute.
Yes, Nine.
Again, the Ulster 8 does its job. Roger Wilson with the time and position to be allowed to get away. Lovely kick from Jared Payne, but a great pick up from Brendan Williams too. And suddenly Williams in front of the main stand gets the Treviso fans believing that they can get themselves back into this game. You look back over, certainly over last season, 15-16 the Ulstermen won in this very venue thanks to that Niall O'Connor penalty on the hour mark. But then Ravenhill witnessed a 29-all draw in March. And indeed, we're talking about scoring tries. Treviso outscored them 4-2.
I think that's Rob Herring. If it is, he's done exceptionally well. Gets in on the ball. Treviso not releasing in the tackle. Ulster doing very well. As soon as they identify that it's a one-off runner, they're actually throwing 2 men into the tackle. One's targeting the man and one's targeting the ball. Doing very well to wrap him up.
Valerio Bernabeu just making sure his neck muscles are in good shape for when he enters the fray, no doubt.
Front row partners, Four brings him down, and Herring right in on top of the ball.
And as we said in the first half, the defensive stability of Ulster has been impressive all season and is showing well again in this game.
Yeah, it has been. There's been a good balance to Ulster's play. Defensively, they've been very, very solid. It takes a very good side to break them down. And in fact, sometimes the most joy teams have got is actually when they've been very, very physical up front and taking it around the fringes or the driven line out, something like that. But certainly in open play, Ulster very solid. But it's been also the tries. They've been exciting on the ball. The backline fizzes. Jackson's been playing them into spaces. They got strikers all over the pitch.
Not hitting the target with that one, Ruin Peanut.
And that's the difference between the two sides. When we talk about game breakers, Ulster have game breakers sprinkled right throughout the side, and then you've got the experience of Pinar. Sometimes then when it's not on, puts the ball in the air, gets it far down the pitch. Huge experience in that key position of 9.
And such a game manager, Ruin Peanut. Invaluable to have that balance between him at 9 and Paddy Jackson at 10. Jackson looking for Craig Gilroy, coming off his wing to find extra work. Payne stepping in at first receiver, throwing the ball wide and trying to flood that left channel. Dan Tui sets the ball back. Ulster moving it from side to side in the hope that they're going to be able to snag this Treviso defence, find the gap, find the tired legs or the lack of concentration that would allow them to get that gain line bust. Phase after phase, Afoa cutting a good line against the weaker arm support. Jackson releases the ball to Dyack. Di Bernardo finding himself on the wrong side of that ruck. Continued possession for the Ulstermen, but not making much headway down the pitch at the moment. Again, the forwards happy to smash the ball up.
And the key thing is they'll be concentrating on their patience here. Well, they've taken it quickly.
Peanut tapping and going quickly, getting the support from Cave. The beautiful handling from Darren Cave, just unable to find the support runner, which I think was Craig Gilroy.
I suppose that sums up the difference between last week and this week. Last week, that beautiful little offer would have worked out and gone to hand. But also I'm surprised as well they didn't go for the 3 points there. They're playing the game in the areas that they want to, keeping Treviso in their own half, and eventually you'd have thought discipline-wise the opportunities will come.
There was the quick tap from the South African scrum half. Geraldini and Williams combining to bring him down, but here we go with Darren Cave and the little flip out the back door, almost funny. Well, in fact, it was Williams that got in front there of Gilroy. Well, Treviso looking to make changes now off the bench, as Geraldini has some attention. Coming to the end of this third quarter, and certainly since the break, it's all been about the visitors.
Well, this would have been an absolutely stunning try if that final pass had just gone to hand. And Cave and Gilroy actually in the last couple of matches have combined exceptionally well together, seem to read each other's play very well.
You saw Brendan Williams just getting his mitt in there, just as well he did. Because Craig Gilroy was thinking about his third try of the season there.
Greg, Trevor, 5 metre scrum is the correct restart.
So we've decided how to get the game back going. Not been an easy afternoon for Mr. Garner. I wonder how the protestations of Perpignan last week have weighed on his mind since.
This is a super opportunity for Ulster. One expects maybe some sort of pre-rehearsed move coming up. Great scrum, mind you.
Good scrum from Treviso, but the chance almost going for the visitors. There's going to be a yellow card here. Who's it going to be to? Brendan Williams, I think, is the man staring in disbelief. Well, that has gone down like an unstamped Christmas card. And Treviso are down to 14 men. Well, did that look like an intentional slap forward? I'm not sure. They normally say it's about having two hands going for the ball, but...
Well, what I'm surprised at is Brendan Williams got such a clear and clean hand to it. He could have got a second hand to it as well if he'd actually put out the other paw. It may well have been an intercept. But I mean, this is a huge opportunity for Ulster. Man down in the back line now in Treviso, and also we've got 23 minutes still to play. If Ulster could get a try here, all of a sudden it just slightly copper fastens the victory to a large extent. Maybe, just maybe, they start being very ambitious and start chasing the bonus point.
Well, the officials have decided it's not a penalty try, much as Williams knew that there was a man outside. I think Barbieri coming across at pace may have influenced that call from Trevor Fisher, but the opportunity still exists for the visitors to go for their second try with their hosts a man down.
So, wait for them to come down.
Herring just waiting for a ball and the call.
Well, the key men, the leaders in this side, like the Mullers, they know how important this opportunity is. They haven't had many chances this deep into the Treviso 22.
Muller takes responsibility at the front of the line out, and the driving ball sets up. They select forward gear, and suddenly the Treviso forwards become just a road bump as Ulster work their way towards that white line. Now, what's the call from the referee on this one?
I think Cittadini had come around on the wrong side. One expects Ulster to go for exactly the same tactic.
No question on what the call is going to be from Johan Muller there.
I just sense the pressure being ramped up. This Ulster pack, Muller leading from the front.
As the match moves towards the hour mark, a big moment you sense. The take is from Tui. Treviso's forwards splinter and fragment the Ulster setup, but they still have the ball.
Van Zyl did very well for Treviso there.
And there's the applause for the Treviso forwards. They've achieved what they set out to do. They've stunted the Ulster attack on that occasion, and now they can draw breath.
Well, the line-out went to Tui instead of Muller on that occasion. And rather than competing for the ball, Treviso stayed down, defended them all, did very well. Van Zyl gets right in there, makes a real nuisance of himself. And they get on the front foot. That's a big chance gone for Ulster.
The sun beginning to show itself again. Beautiful morning. But when that fog appeared, it looked like it was going to cover this game. There's the forward changes. 19 Bernabeu and 20 Dean Budd into the pack. And Zao coming off. There's number 17 as well, Alberto Di Marchi, replacing Michel Rizzo. Dean Budd, who actually scored a hat-trick in that game at Ravenhill 9 months ago now. 29 all draw. The Kiwi who's been an ever-present this season for Treviso.
Crouch! Bind!
And there you see James Ambrosini also on into the back line for Treviso. Now, it'll be interesting to see how they set up. They've got to get themselves out of the 22, of course, first. But in the absence of Brendan Williams, there is a gap there.
Crouch! Bind! Set! Yes, 9.
Dean Budd in the scrum cap on this near side, getting his first taste of the action this afternoon. Barbieri having to repair the loose ball that appeared out of the back of that scrum. Botez setting to kick off his weaker left foot and only succeeds in hoisting it up and catching his forwards offside when not an awful lot they could do there. They had to retreat 10 metres. Nowhere to go.
That was a poor kick. And Ulster, the longer they spend down here, they can just stay composed, do the basics well. Ah, interesting. Going for the scrum this time rather than the line-out option.
Slightly more secure possession guaranteed, perhaps. As you can see, Ambrosini on for Di Bernardo into the fly half berth. Unless Luke McLean steps up, there are a number of options available to Franco Smith to call in that Treviso back line. Not least that man there, Botez, who's played fly half for the Azzurri as well. Jermaine wanders back a bit. Back on the back foot, back in defensive duties, Treviso now, as Ulster look to turn the screw on their hosts. Jackson sending Cave out, and suddenly it's Gilroy who scoots round the outside to nab the second try, and Ulster are able to capitalise on that man advantage. And as the game moves into the final quarter, they set up a sizable buffer now. Smart play from Ulster, realising that one man overlap, and as soon as the ball flies out the pen, it's easy in those wide channels. That extra man proving too much for the Treviso defence. Ruthless efficiency from Ulster, and that really, I think, puts them in potentially firm winning position. And you have to look at it in terms of the group as well. I know there's still 2 more rounds to go after this game, but if Leicester can beat Montpellier as Ulster did at the Stade Yves du Manoir, then Ulster will be pressing for that top spot, or to maintain that top spot, and then of course Ravenhill can look forward to a quarter-final.
Well, I think Mark Anscombe will do anything to avoid talking about the potential of that home quarter-final, but what he does do, he's a very straight-talking, uncomplicated coach. He simply says, if you register 4 points on every occasion that you play in this Heineken Cup pool, you will get not only 3, but you will get a home quarter-final, and that is what he's focused on. The rest of us, well, we can have fun with the permutations of bonus points. He just simply wants to win every game.
And it's a pragmatic outlook that is working for Ulster, as Franco Smith tries to ring the changes. The entire front row now is changed. That's Maestri and Demarchi and Ignacio Fernandez-Royer all into that front line, and Paul Derbyshire into the back row as well.
One suspects, mind you, that Anscombe will be a very interested spectator tomorrow when the Tigers are playing over in France. Might make life a little bit easier, but the Tigers full of confidence, having beaten Montpellier, but certainly the way Montpellier came back last week, they know that it'll be a tough game over in France.
Well, it'll certainly be tough over there. Interesting with the team selection, with no Tranduc in the fly half berth. As to Fabien Galtier's mindset now for that competition, but having lost against Castres the last time they played in front of the Stade Yves du Manoir crowd, you just wonder how determined they will be tomorrow afternoon. We shall see it all here, of course, on Sky Sports. As we get to the end of round 4, we shall have a lot clearer idea of not only where pool 5 is, but of course where the other 5 pools are as well.
Terrific turnover from Sean Doyle. Treviso have really struggled to get out of their own half. It's almost like a deja vu. Let's get a kick into the corner. Muller will be talking to his forwards as they jog up to this line out. Will they keep it in the pack, or will they try and unleash Paddy Jackson again? Get the ball out wide. Everybody doing their jobs. The dummy runners as important as the strikers, holding this midfield defence and creating space on the outside. But huge opportunity. Just read the body language there. Luke McLean slightly deflated.
Yeah, it seems to be taking its toll now on the home side with quarter of an hour left. When they look at that scoreline, it's a long way to come back. And certainly with the way that the Ulster forwards now are beginning to flex their muscles, it's no easy pathway. Pinar feeds out to Marshall, good strength from the inside centre. But the ball comes out.
Well, that could potentially be another yellow card.
There's another yellow coming in.
Yeah, straight in from the side. A terrific break from Marshall.
Is it Luke McLean, I think? Just looking to see, but Treviso going to go down to 9. It is. And more cause for concern for the home fans. Well, much as we were talking about a pragmatic approach from Anscombe and the Ulstermen, now opportunity knocks with 13 minutes left and their host down to 13.
Wow, it does. The door is ajar, but it still requires a little bit of cool-headed play. Pinar, Wilson chatting, but Ulster, this is such a fantastic opportunity. And also, if they can get this, then they've got 10 minutes, a further 10 minutes with Treviso down to another
Pinar
14
takes
men.
quickly, trying to catch Treviso, recovering from that scrum. Just thinking about the snipe around the fringe, or are they going to rumble their way over? Well, Robbie Dyack, I think, thinks he's got try number 3, and I think he's going to force the officials to have a look at that, because just as we were looking for it to be sprung out into the backs, I think the South African back rower has stumbled over the line almost.
Well, Pinar was struggling to get the ball out, and John Afoa came in and just cleared out a few bodies, and Dyack just coming straight through the ruck.
The call from Greg Garner is try yes or no. You may have heard that, and he's also got concerns about some illegalities in there in the middle of that. There's Robbie Dyack with his back to us and with the ball.
Well, it took us so by surprise.
Rolled there, hasn't been able to get the ball down. Is it Dyack or Sean Doyle? Beg his pardon, I think that's...
Well, Doyle is on the ground with his shirt to us.
Now there goes Dyack over the top, there he is.
I think what's happened is Dyack has managed to get that ball off Sean Doyle, and Afoa coming in just to add extra ballast. Let's just give him the extra thrust over the line.
Yeah.
You just see John Afoa charging into that ruck to try and clear out. Let's have a listen.
On that one we've just seen, please.
That was the one I think that may cause the concern if Afoa's come in for that clear out. Trevor Fisher, very experienced TMO, but biding his time to have a look at that.
It's interesting. It's not the situation that you see happening on a pitch terribly often. I mean, I've never seen this before, but certainly Doyle has got the ball on the ground there. Pinar's trying to get his fingertips on it. Afoa comes in.
There's the rollover as he's pushed over by...
Okay, now, okay, I'm going to give the try.
Callum Black, your try's good.
Greg.
Here's the call.
Greg, Trevor, you may award the try.
Well, you can hear the roars from the crowd there. They know what this means. That is victory for Ulster. There may only be maybe 12 minutes left, and you never want to rule out a side, but I cannot see Treviso coming back from this. But even more importantly, the third try coming up, you see a 4 coming in.
Well, 3 tries in the bag for the visitors. The opposition down, well, at 13 at the moment. It'll be back to 14 in just a tick. And suddenly it's all going right for the Ulstermen.
And after 30 minutes, you would not have seen this scoreline. 3-all for such a long period of that first half.
Brendan Williams now back on the park, so just a solo man down for Treviso, but surely this game is gone now for the home side. You just can't see where they're going to be able to come back, and in Williams' absence they've shipped 14 points.
Paul Marshall on for Ruan Pinar. Pinar's job is done.
Trimble does well to get the ball back to Darren Cave. Cave and Roger Wilson, they're the only ever presence in this Ulster side on the pitch. They've given more minutes than anybody else, and consistency of performance from the likes of those two has been the backbone of Ulster this season, no question.
Well, Ulster will be desperate to get their hands on this ball and play the rugby back down in the Treviso half.
Lots of very tired bodies out there now. You can see it, particularly in the body language of the Italian side. An emotional day, of course, just to remind you, these the last 10 minutes of Franco Smith's reign, his 7th season in charge. But bidding goodbye with another loss, their 8th in succession since they beat Connacht. There's some of the highlights of the match thus far. Not many for Treviso, plenty though for Ulster. That lovely little kick from Jared Payne to set up Marshall's score in the first half at a critical time just before the break. And really, since the break, the momentum has all been in the visitors' favour. Gilroy making the most of Williams' absence, and then Robbie Dyack with that last score.
But it really was that moment of absolute genius from Jared Payne that turned this game in Ulster's favour.
Ulster bench is ready to contribute. Just waiting for the OK from upstairs, I think, to step over the line. Here they come. Niall Annett, whose brother we saw winning his 4th Cambridge Blue. A happier afternoon for the Annetts this afternoon than it was on Thursday, though.
Ulster, step out, please. Step out a little bit.
Just see who else has come on. I think that's Mike McCormish also on to get 10 minutes of action. And they will hope to be contributing to another try before that referee's whistle goes.
Down Tui getting penalised for the same thing that the Italians got pinged for down in their own 22.
Valerio Nesnil-Macomb on into that second row. I beg his pardon. I'm looking to see the numbers there. Valerio Bernabout coming to have a word with the assistant referee on this near side. Is English with a New York accent. Spent much of his childhood in and around the Bronx and New York. Treviso trying to work the line-out move at the front that so many teams have adapted over recent years to try and catch opposition cold. Ambrosini flicks it out to Alberto Scarbi.
Tackle!
Treviso trying to keep some momentum in this attacking play. It really has not been an easy scenario for them this afternoon. Worked so hard in that first half and unsettled Ulster.
Well, having the advantage in numbers, Ulster will want to dominate the tackle area here, but Treviso certainly not leaving anything in the tank, keeping running at this Ulster line and getting through it, getting on the front foot, extra yards.
I was talking earlier about the squad composition of Treviso, forgetting of course that they still have this rule now that you can only have 5 foreigners in the 23, aimed of course to developing Italian talent or Italian qualified talent. So maybe that's impacted slightly on Franco Smith's selection.
It just means, mind you, that they've got to go searching elsewhere for Italian passports to try and somehow manage that.
Advantage knock on.
McComb getting across there to try and derail Treviso line out, but it is there for the home side. And for the first time in this second half, they're threatening the Ulster line. Bud with good handling, the man from Whangarei in the North Island of New Zealand, keeping play going for the Northern Italian team. This is trying to keep the link. Bottes, little inside pop. Wasn't on, so kept hold of the ball. Gorey acting as the link man. Brendan Williams pulled up just short. Gilroy took a bang in the face there, but Treviso are not going to wait for that.
Outside.
Gorey trying to snipe around the fringe,
line,
but the Ulster Pillars doing their job. Bottes feeds out to his captain. Having to do the dog to get that ball out, and in the end, the referee gives the penalty to Ulster. And yet another moment has gone from Treviso.
Well, one suspects it's too little too late. It's still putting pressure, finishing strongly, but Ulster, they want to get themselves well down this pitch, solid line out, and just set up camp deep in the Treviso half. Just keep going. It's been a scrappy first half an hour, but Ulster have done very well. This has been a battling performance, and they've got to 3 tries at this stage. They'll be absolutely delighted with that.
When you think back to that first half and how they had to soak up so much pressure, it has been a tick in a different box for Ulster this afternoon, isn't it?
Well, I think they probably have received exactly what they expected. A different Treviso side, a fired up Treviso side.
Paul Marshall getting dirty ball from that line out. And in the end, I think he'd be happy to have seen a knock on from the Treviso hand. Maris Husson. What difference can he make over the next 5-6 months or so?
Well, it's going to be interesting because Franco Smith was obviously supposed to leave at the end of the season. They've decided if they're going to make that change, well, let's make it now. Husson coming, well, being the assistant coach but coming in, but you know, no change of personnel. You just wonder what great difference it's going to make, and it's going to be an interesting story to track over the next couple of months.
I'm not saying that they're two similar men, but of course they're both ex-fly halves, both South African. Be interesting to see whether there is feasibility to change the mindset, change the tactics. I don't know. It's a big call in the middle of the season.
Yeah, and it just depends also whether the players they've got have actually got the skills to be able to play a slightly different way.
I know Santa's approaching for most people at Christmas, but I think Mark Anscombe will be happy to wait until middle of January to get his Christmas presents, because when you look at the injury list of people coming back, Ian Henderson, Chris Henry, Nick Williams, there's an entire back row waiting to come back. We're told middle end of January. Tommy Bowe may be back from that groin injury as well. Rory Best, fractured forearm, should have sorted itself out by then. Paddy Wallace had 80 minutes captaining the Ravens last Saturday. Even Stephen Ferris is now, you know, on that, well into that rehab situation. So providing they don't lose any more from injury, Ulster's future looks very rosy over the next few months.
Well, it's been one of the challenges over the last few weeks has been how to deal with that ever lengthening injury list. But you know, it's squads win trophies nowadays rather than teams. So very important over the course of a season that you manage those injuries. Certainly I think the physio room has had a revolving door over the last few weeks. But you know, as you lose some, you get some back. And you just hope over the course of the season that I suppose you're net credit by the end of it.
So I'm sure the physio department at Ulster have been worked and overworked through the course of these first 4 months or so.
It's going to be an exciting last couple of minutes here. Ulster put themselves again into a perfect position on the pitch.
3 minutes to go, the game is won, but there is still one more target that Ulster are now aiming for. Luke Marshall taking them up into the 22. Paul Marshall feeds out for Neil McComb and round the corner. Marshall, a real spark plug of a scrum half. Different style, of course, to Pienaar. Marshall to Marshall. Continuity. Key for Ulster now.
Offside.
As tired Treviso legs
penalty, Ulster.
will set up a dog leg opportunity perhaps. Advantage going to the visitors. Oh, footwork from Trimble.
Yes.
And there's the try. I think it's Jared Payne. Well, I think they're going to check it, but looks like Jared Payne has given Ulster an early Christmas present there.
Well, the referee had already signalled that he was about to give a penalty, which would have given a great opportunity for either a scrum or a line-out. But again, it's that offload. It's come off Paddy Jackson's feet. Trimble scooped it up. It's just going to be a question of whether anybody is offside.
There's so much ricocheting of the ball, it was difficult to see where the line was drawn. Can't honestly see anything there, can you?
Doesn't seem to be, well, we haven't really had too many good angles to see exactly what has happened there, but certainly doesn't seem to be anything terribly striking. What a result it would be to come away with a bonus point. I think Mark Anscombe would have taken the victory every single time, but they've worked their way into the game.
Good footballing skills from Andrew Trimble, and handling indeed as well. To gift that try for Payne.
It would be apt as well if Payne was to get this bonus point try, because he really unlocked the door with that beautiful fan and kick.
Santa's come to Ulster because the referee's arm is about to go up and say, you've got the bonus point try. There it is. Well, it's going to be a good weekend, no matter when they're travelling back to Belfast. It's been the performance that they wanted to see from their team, the continuation of superb European form as Jackson puts the icing on a very tasty cake this afternoon.
You consider 48 points last week, 35 this week. Now, not too far off that emphatic performance from last week, and yet under far more difficult and trying circumstances. It's been a superb battling performance from Ulster. At times they've come under real pressure, but they've stuck to their guns. They've got the basics in place. They sorted out the set piece when it began to creak ever so slightly in the middle of that first half, and crucially, those 4 tries have given them the perfect return from this series of back-to-back games.
Yes, 18 points from Paddy Jackson last week, 15 this, and it's job done from the visitors as Luke McLean is replaced right at the end of this game.
Well, it was the try at the end of the first half really gave them the opportunity, but it has been a dominant performance in the second half. Really been pretty much all Ulster.
But that's what I'm saying, it actually ticks a lot of different boxes. They've shown a lot of different qualities this afternoon. To be patient, to bide their time.
And that's good for Mark Anscombe and the rest of the coaching staff to see. You know, having to adapt, having to react to challenges, different questions being asked, and coming up with different types of answers. You know, there are different ways to play the game, there are different ways of winning, And Anscombe and his men have had to adapt over these last 2 games, and I think he'll be very, very happy with the results, but also with the performances. They haven't been stretched, but they've done exactly what has been required.
Well, Johnny Bell will be happier if they can just rebuff this last Treviso attack and not allow the home side to get across the whitewash. They're driving now with Paul Derbyshire. Pulled down just short. A last big effort from the Ulstermen to finish this game off with a real smile on their faces. And there it is, the knock-on is forced. The referee's whistle will surely follow. And Ulster have emerged from the fog with their record at the Stadio Comunale di Monego unblemished. Their record in the Heineken Cup this season unblemished, and they sit on top of Pool 5 now with 18 points, having taken the maximum from both of these encounters with Treviso. It's onwards and upwards for Mark Anscombe's side. They win in Treviso 35 points to 3.